Well, I'm struck by the difference in what I'm hearing today versus what we heard from Scouts Canada when we began our investigation 18 months ago. Most notably, we were told there was no confidential list. At times we were told there were no files. I still have an email that says no files, folders, or records of any kind detailing allegations of abuse. Then told there were 350, but that Scouts was absolutely certain to the best of its knowledge, which it repeated many times, that those cases had always been taken to police as soon as the allegations were learned. And now we're hearing something very different. How should Canadians reconcile the two messages from Scouts?
I think Canadians can take comfort in the fact that we're confronting the past in its entirety, with a heightened level of openness and transparency like we've never seen before. I personally became aware of your investigation late in the summer as we were going into the fall. And my commitment to the public in December was that we would do whatever we can to make things right. At the time, I had been, based on the information that I had been provided with by our staff, as I've indicated, I am a volunteer. I have a family and a career thousands of miles away. But based on the information that I had available to me from our staff, I had been told that we had always cooperated with authorities. That's exactly why we brought KPMG in. We chose to make that decision to bring in a forensic auditor, and we invested considerable time and money to ensure that no stone was left unturned, and that every possible record that we had in our possession was audited, and to also ensure that all of that information was put in the hands of law enforcement authorities. And we've honored that commitment, and I hope that our members, I hope that families, I hope that the Canadian public will take some comfort in that commitment, because I believe we've demonstrated the kind of transparency and honesty that's warranted.
You say there was no intent found in the KPMG investigation that showed that Scouts Canada had an overriding intent to hide or cover up. But certainly it found that there was no intent to take this seriously either. The files are disorganized in a haphazard manner. 29 times out of 486, I believe it is, Scouts actually initiated calls to police. What would you say to victims? Because there are many who are watching this live right now who want to know what you say to them, given what you now know of the files and how those allegations were handled over many years.
So I'd like to make 3 comments if I can remember all your points. First and foremost, to victims, I would stress once again, as I said in December and I'll say it again before you today, we are deeply and truly sorry for any harm that has happened at the hands of volunteers that were in our organization. And we will do everything we can to prevent such instances from happening in the future, and we encourage victims to talk to us. We've been able to provide additional support to some of the victims that have, past victims that have come forward. We've extended counseling services. We've engaged in a dialogue on child abuse and what we're doing today to make the organization and to make our society safer. In terms of the issue of Scouts Canada only contacting the authorities 29 times out of the 486, I think it's important to note that in many instances, and first of all, in 73% of the cases overall of the 486, 328 cases, either we contacted the authorities or the authorities contacted us. And let me explain why I think that is. If a child felt uncomfortable or felt they had been harmed by a leader in our organization, they would logically confide in somebody they trust. In many cases it was their parents. And their parents, it seems from what the review tells us, did the right thing in a couple of ways. First and foremost, they protected their children from further harm. And secondly, they immediately contacted the appropriate authorities. Not Scouts Canada, but child protection authorities and police authorities. And the records certainly imply that Scouts Canada, once learning of that, was fully cooperative and did what it could to support and assist in those investigations.
But to be clear, there were 65 instances where Scouts learned early on and didn't go to the police, and 64 where you're not clear if you did at all. And so it was hardly the overriding practice to go to police.
In 73% of the time, which is not a number that I'm particularly happy with, obviously we strive for 100%. So any instances where things were not reported to authorities in a timely fashion, any instances are unacceptable. There are lots of potential reasons that we could speculate on as to why that happened. In some cases it was because parents advised us that they didn't want authorities contacted. In some cases it was because adults came to us as adults to talk about instances that had happened years ago, and we encouraged them to contact authorities. But regardless, we believe that regardless of our legal obligation, our moral obligation today is to put that information in the hands of authorities. And that's what we've done, and we hope that provides some comfort to those out there that may have been harmed in the past. Did our systems fail in the past, and were policies and procedures not followed at times? Absolutely. And that's unacceptable. And that is why we entered into this process, to fully understand that and expose that and confront that, but also to ensure that we can address those gaps. And through the update we've provided today, that's what we've attempted to do. And the journey is not over.